Now, off to quant. For the most part, I'm going to alternate between quant and verbal today. Again, theme of the quant lessons here, I'm not going to walk you through all the foundations. I've only got 11 hours of quant. Can't do everything. But instead, what I want to focus on is these are the pitfalls we typically see. And I don't want you to think about it as the test is trying to trick me or the test is out to get me. That is not it at all. When we talk about traps, what I really mean is these are things we create in our own heads, right? What are the things that we tend to do that are sloppy? Number one biggest thing we see, and I can't emphasize this enough, and nobody wants to hear it. It is so unbelievably not sexy again, it's the careless errors that absolutely kill you on an adaptive test. I can't say this enough. If your goal is a 47 or above on quant, let's say that your goal is you want to get a 700. So something like this, so a 47 quant, 40 verbal, is going to get you right around a 700 or a 710. Now you could get the same two subscores as the guy next to you in the test center and get a slightly different composite score. There's some rounding going on there. And we're going to hear from our sponsor a little bit more in just a minute. So once I get through the introduction, we'll talk a little bit about the wonders of GMAT and how they can help you with some of this stuff too. So real quick, 47 quant, your route to a 700. I need to see you get a 47 quant or above. If you've got the talent to get a 51, fantastic. But what I want you to think about here is, look, you don't need to be great at math to get a 47. You need to cover all your bases, have no major holes, and most importantly, not make any careless errors. I've had some students over the years who are frankly not good at math really at all, who really struggled in business school. But they could get to this level just through outstanding execution. Remember, what the test is doing is trying to find the level of question you get half right, half wrong. So you are going to miss somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 50% of the questions unless you're way at the top of the scale. Who I'm really kind of aiming these lessons at today are people who are shooting for something kind of that, we'll say kind of 46 to 49, 50 range for the most part. To do that, no sloppy errors, manage your time well, pick your battles well, don't get stubborn. And this is where the really unsexy stuff comes in. I'd say probably half the students that come to us as a private tutoring company are saying, yeah, I've got a degree in engineering, or you know, I've got a master's degree in physics, or I was really great at math. I got these great marks in math as a kid. You know, why am I getting 42s and 44s sometimes on quant? And we know the answer right away. It's the careless errors. So I'm going to show you something that is really, 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 really not exciting at all. 4 steps. These are not exciting. They're kind of embarrassing to talk about. We drill this into our students all the time. You're going to hear me refer to them throughout the 24 hours today. These are really dumb, simple steps. You have to do them. Don't make careless errors, people. You make 2 or 3 errors on easy questions, you are never going to see the hard questions. So if what you're seeing in your scores and your practice test scores off official stuff, your actual exam scores, you know, 47 one day, 42 the next, 45 the next day, you're making sloppy errors. Could be that you're managing your time badly as well, but that just leads to more sloppy errors, right? So every single question, I want good hygiene. And nobody's interested in watching this, but it is so crucial. If I could wave a magic wand over everybody watching, and you're going to do these 4 steps every time, I just made everybody's scores improve massively, almost everybody. So read the question twice. I know, feels like a waste of time. Do it. Because if you miss one little word in there, same goes for verbal, right? Verbal or quant. You miss one little word. We'll talk about this on critical reasoning in the next hour. If you miss one little word there, X is negative, X is not negative, X is an integer, X is not an integer, you're in trouble. Make sure you catch that stuff. Take a breath. Make sure that you're giving yourself the best chance you possibly can to think through, hey, what's going on here? Is there a better way to approach it? Related, step 2, plot your path forward. What's the GMAT doing? What makes the GMAT hard? Why is it time pressure? They're trying to find out who can be flexible and who can't. You know, if you talk to somebody at GMAT and you say, oh yeah, on the math section of the GMAT, this has actually happened to me before at conferences, and they'll interrupt you and say, no, there is no math section. There's only a quantitative reasoning section. Well, what's that distinction? It's they're trying to find out, can you find the best way through? Typical, let's say mid-level question, moderate to hard question, might have 6 different solution paths. Your job is to pick one of the better ones. Give yourself the time to do it. Take a breath. The corollary of this, if your path is crap, guess and move on. Again, for most of you, if you're way at the top of the score scale, awesome. Then you can afford to be super, super anal and take your time on everything because you're so good and you're so fast. For most people, vast majority of people, even people scoring 50s, you got to pick your battles. Think through, what am I going to do here on this question? If you don't have a good way to do it, walk away. Number 3, check your steps as you go. And I'm not saying redo things. I'm just saying, hey, if you decide that you got a little calculation there, 4 times 7, sometimes you go, hey, that's 32. It happens to everybody. I don't care who you are. You're going to see me do it a ton of times today. Just check. Just take a moment and go, wait a minute, is 4 times 7 really 32? Just take that moment. Get in the habit. And finally, read one more time. And that sounds dumb and redundant, like, hey, ninja guy, I don't want to read questions 3 times. It's a waste of my time. I hear you. But this should be active. You're looking for ways that you tend to mess up. You need to learn about yourself and what you do wrong. I'm going to try to poke at some wounds here that are pretty common on quadratics and exponents in just a moment. But as you go through, I want you to pay attention to the ways you tend to mess up. I don't want you to dismiss it. So one thing I see all the time, probably half the students I've worked with over the 20 plus years I've been tutoring, negatives are a problem. Sometimes they just drop it or decide that a negative times a negative is positive or do funny things with parentheses. We all do it, right? Everybody makes those kinds of mistakes. Maybe you make them more or less than the next guy. But what I want you to really focus on is learn what your mistakes are. And as you're reading that one extra time, pay attention to it. So I'm going to refer to this as the 4 steps throughout today. And I'm seeing some really nice comments in here that people are kind of seeing that whipsawing in their quant scores. Super, super common. And we're going to talk a ton today about flexibility. So I see a lot of engineers, fantastic math skills, frankly, better than mine. Advanced math, I'm not so strong, to be honest with you. But I'm lazy, right? I try to find the best ways through. I'm really good at step 2. Want you guys to get there too. All right, go ahead and tackle this guy, and we'll give you about 2 minutes. And as soon as you have an answer or you're lost, please punch something into the chat. Okay, starting to see disagreement, and it's interesting. Kind of the first wave of people, tons of agreement. Second wave, not so much. Okay, a couple things here. Kind of the underlying theory a little bit that I think probably everybody watching is already very familiar with. These kind of special quadratics things, you know, so sort of the x plus y whole thing squared, or x minus y whole thing squared, or x squared minus y squared, these special quadratics. GMAT just loves them. They're a little bit obsessed. You're going to see these over and over and over, but they're going to disguise them really well. And that's the GMAT's whole shtick, right? So when I say plot your path forward, a lot of it is kind of going, hey, what do I see here that I recognize that I can do something with? Some people kind of know these guys, and apologies, I think that green pen isn't showing up very well. And they kind of know, yeah, well, of course, I know what that is. That's x minus y, x plus y. Oh, it's obvious. Okay, well, you have the thing memorized, but if I put it in a different context, can you still see it? Can you still see what's going on? And yeah, apologies for the markers, guys. This lesson is sponsored by eGMAT, not by Expo markers. These are all brand new, actually, and half of them are running dry. eGMAT, their content never runs dry, constantly building new stuff, constantly writing new questions. Some of the hardest working people in our industry. See what I did there? All right. So you guys have these memorized for the most part. And you can kind of go, yeah, I got this thing memorized. But what I'm interested in isn't that. It's when I put it in a different context, can you still see it? That's one of the really important things. And again, I'll pick on you with that throughout this hour. Now here, hopefully you're not looking at the x squared plus y squared and going, oh, that's x plus y equals 10. That's not true. This is not the square of x plus y. So that's one thought. Second thought here, always on data sufficiency, what I want you to do, push the question. Push the question. What I mean by that is, can you take the question itself before you even look at the statements? I'm in the habit of not even writing them down at first, because I just want to focus on that question and say, is there a way for me to write something that is logically totally equivalent, that's going to be helpful to me and help me make sense of those answer choices when I get there? So I can expand this out, right? And maybe at a glance or before I do it, I don't necessarily know where it's going, but no harm in doing it, right? It takes me 4 seconds. X squared minus 2xy plus y squared is equal to question mark. I'm also very deliberate about this. Again, name of the game here. Don't make silly errors. Put things into your process. We're talking about it for 24 hours straight in different contexts. Get things in your process that give you good hygiene, prevent you from making silly errors. I'm making sure that I don't mix question and statement. Fact, I have it written as a fact. Question, I have it written as a question. Yes, I'm manipulating the question, but I still write that Q. I still write that question mark. I try to do it religiously. Keeps me from getting all twisted around, especially as I get tired towards the end of a test or towards the end of a 24-hour GMAT marathon. Now, I already know this x squared plus y squared thing. I know that's 100. So I can rewrite this one more time as 100 minus 2xy is equal to what? And well, the 100's no mystery. I know what that is. The 2's no mystery. What am I after? I just want xy. That's it. That's all I care about. Real quick on data sufficiency, you'll see me do this. Credit where credit's due. I think this was popularized by Manhattan way back in the day. Nothing magical about it. I think most of you guys are probably already using it. Not going to say a whole ton about it. I don't feel dogmatic about how you're crossing things out. The reason I like to use this is that if I know that statement 1 is sufficient, I can cross out BCE. It's my cue to take a breath, wash my brains, and then approach statement 2. If the opposite is true, that's great. Statement 1 is not sufficient, cross that out, take a breath, look at it again. So a lot of what I care about, don't read both statements at the beginning. One of the things that I don't like doing, if you try to swallow the question whole, you're going to hear me use that term a lot over the 24 hours. You can make some pretty bad mistakes. Take it one statement at a time, wash your brains, because it's really easy to kind of get both things lodged in your head. And then you make some mistake and it's A when the answer is really C, or you decide it's C when it's really B, and all kinds of goofy things can happen. All right. So this is what I want. I want xy. Now we can go to statement 1. X is equal to 48 over y. I don't think anybody's struggling there. Obviously, that simplifies really, really quickly. And that is sufficient. Can cross out BCE. Statement 2, this is where it gets fun. So x squared minus y squared is equal to negative 28. Now, I think there's a kind of a, I don't know, superficial way of doing this where you look at it and go, well, wait a minute. Positive, negative, I can't really do anything here because I don't necessarily know what x and y are. Yeah, I'm a little nervous about that. I want to prove it, right? You could kind of make your guess almost here that positive and negatives are going to be an issue. But things work out funny on GMAT Algebra, especially on data sufficiency, and you never know. So let's go ahead and do the math here. What I'm going to do is I noticed that I've got the opportunity here to add a couple equations, get something to cancel out, make it prettier. And I'm seeing that comment quite a bit in here, which is great. So x squared plus y squared equals 100. X squared minus y squared equals a negative 28. Stop me if I make a mistake, but I think we end up with 2x squared equals 72. We can divide that, x squared equals 36. So x is equal to positive or minus 6. And again, today's all about hygiene, making sure you guys stop making the unforced errors. Most of you are probably going, I would never make that mistake, but most of you have probably done it. Yep, that's squared. Any even power needs to jump off the page at you every single time. Just cover your butt, make sure you're thinking about positives and negatives. Obviously, context matters. If this were geometry, there's not going to be a negative length of a side of a triangle. But here I know that's the case. And then actually, I'm kind of in business. Because from there I can go, well, I know that this is 36. So I can figure out that this is, I think we're going to get that y squared equals 64, I believe. I think that's right. Yep. So then y is equal to plus or minus 8. So all I did was I punched that x squared back in here, solve for y squared, get my 64 plus and minus 8. So right there, you know that you could have either 48 or negative 48 as the value of xy, and that's why D. Enjoy. Huge thanks to everybody who's being honest with this one and tell me when they're struggling. I know it's hard. Yeah, now we're starting to see the struggles coming out in the live chat. That makes me happy. Not happy you're struggling, but I appreciate the honesty because I think there's the temptation to kind of say, hey, I know what I'm doing. And then kind of the people who are comfortable with this kind of thing do it really quickly and it's easy to get intimidated. Please don't. I'm seeing about 5% of the crowd kind of popping correct answers out really, really quickly. That's not necessarily normal. I think this is a pretty tough question. All right. So, and again, if you found this easy, fantastic. I think for most test takers, it probably isn't. I mean, we're starting to climb towards kind of 650-ish kind of level with this. You could pick numbers here, but the skill that I'm really after, I'm not a big fan of number picking, to be honest, you guys, because I think it's really easy to kind of get into this mess. You know, as we look at all those answer choices, it's like, there's a lot to punch in, right? I mean, I'm going to sit there and kind of do that for 5 answer choices or do it until I get the right one. But then what if 2 of them are right? Like there's too many pitfalls picking numbers here. I actually think that's harder personally and more broadly. Like what's the underlying skill that I care about here? The underlying skill I care about is quadratics, right? you're going to see these a ton. It's one of the most commonly tested things is quadratics disguised in some way or another, right? So when I see that 2xy, I want you to immediately think, hey, one of these guys is getting squared. So that should be your first thought. And we're going to play with that in a whole bunch of different contexts. It's going to come up again and again throughout the marathon here. So I'm going to take this and go, well, let me just play with this. I notice that all my answer choices are in terms of A and B. If I square A, so I get a squared equals x squared plus 2xy plus y squared. Do the same with the b, x squared minus 2xy plus y squared. What I want is this. Well, I can get all this stuff to cancel except for the 2xy if I subtract these equations. Now, one of the little things, tiny little things, some of you guys have done this so much in your lives that you don't struggle with subtracting equations. Very small thing. I usually don't subtract equations. I usually multiply by 1 first and then add. Just one little way for me to make sure that I'm less likely to make an error. It doesn't take me very long. So I'm going to go, okay, I got minus b squared equals minus x squared plus 2xy minus y squared. I'm a little more comfortable doing it that way because the thing that a lot of people can get into is when you subtract the negative. So a squared minus b squared, and we've got 4 terms here. It is really, really, really easy to kind of do something goofy when you subtract. Personally, I always add equations. If you're comfortable subtracting, go for it. But if you ever catch yourself making errors, I want you to think about multiplying it separately as a separate step. Write it down. Insulate yourself against those careless errors. And again, this is an error I see people make all the time who are great at math, people with advanced degrees in physics or engineering. And they're still making this kind of mistake because they blitz through. They're like, I know how to do this, and they go too fast. Take a breath. You can't afford to miss this, even if you're really great at it. All right. So now I'm going to add these. So a squared minus b squared equals the x squareds cancel out, the y squareds cancel out, equals 4xy. And now I'm really close to what I want. All I have to do is divide both by 2. And I got it. And here's my answer. A squared minus b squared over 2, and I don't remember which answer choice that is. That is answer choice A. Okay, I'm going to give you one more harder one of this flavor, and then I think we're going to probably veer into some exponents and see what happens from there. Okay, so maybe had out of the almost 40 people we have here live, maybe 20 gave the right answer. Most of you guys took a little while, so I think I finally gotcha. I think this one's pretty advanced. And what makes a question hard exactly on the GMAT? And not to get all philosophical on you, but we kind of get this idea in our heads that what makes the GMAT hard or some standardized test hard, I know we've got some GRE people here. What makes it hard? It's going to be more advanced math. It's going to be more in-depth algebra. It's going to be more intense algebra. And it's like, that's not really the GMAT's thing. It's not so much they're going to give you super intense, dense algebra that you need a master's degree in physics to solve. They're going to give you something that's just, they're going to make it hard for you to see how to get in there, right? It's the entry point that they make difficult. And in particular here, this is going to be a theme in hour number 4 as well. It's that toggling back and forth between mechanics and intuition. Like that's kind of the GMAT's deal, right? Under time pressure, add that in there too. So the instinct here, so I'm gonna do the translation first. So 2 positive integers, A and B, where A is greater than B, they're positive integers, great. If you're not in the habit of having it on the page looking up at you, have that looking up at you, because it's really easy to forget that they're positive integers. That's a hint. The sum of the squares of these integers, sum of the squares, square of one of them, square of the other one, I'm going to add them up. That's equal to 5 times their sum. All right. And then the difference of the squares is 9 times their difference. That's a little mess. But again, these quadratics, I think a lot of you probably got to the idea that, hey, that bottom one looks familiar, difference of squares. So I can go a minus b, a plus b, equal to 9, a minus b. I can divide out by the a minus b. Watch your back here. We know that they're different, right? We know that a is bigger than b. So we know we can just divide by the a minus b. It is not equal to 0 here, so I can get away with that. That's great. So now I've got a plus b equals 9. I feel good about myself so far. Now from here, oh, that's cool. I'm getting somewhere. I can punch that a plus b in for the a plus b up here. I get a squared plus b squared equals 45. And if I'm going rigid algebra brain from here, I'm going to get myself into real trouble. Because here's what I can do, and maybe there's a way through it that I'm just not seeing. But I'm kind of tempted to start adding here, and I cancel out the b squared. Who knows, right? That sounds good. But then I'm kind of in this mess. 2a squared equals 45 plus 9a plus minus b. And maybe there's a way out of this, but my brain's in the wrong mode, right? I went so mechanical. I kept going mechanical, and now I'm kind of stuck, right? Now, instead, if I kind of take the algebra mechanical brain, put it over there for a second and go, well, hey, how can I think logically? How can I use my human brain and kind of go, well, can I get my intuition somewhere that I can do something here? Wait a minute. Positive integers, a squared plus b squared. Oops, that turned into an x magically. A squared plus b squared equals 45. Guys, there's not a lot of options here. Perfect square plus perfect square equals 45. Not a lot of ways to do that. If you're not real confident, you could always, there's actually a bunch of questions that get at this on the GMAT, where you can go, all right, well, here's my perfect squares that are options, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. Not a lot of choices. This pretty much has to be 36 plus 9. We know that they're both positive. So we know that these integers themselves, so we know that a squared is the bigger one. A squared's got to be 36. B squared's got to be 9. So A is equal to 6, B is equal to 3. A minus B, 3. Answer's A. All right, that's a fun one. Now, it's not to say that there aren't other ways to do this. That's always a theme on the GMAT, right? Typical question might have 6 different solution paths. Hour number 2, my voice is already going. Very, very typical GMAT. 6 solution paths. I'm not saying there's that many here. Different strokes for different folks, but I want you to spend that time going, okay, read twice, think a little bit. Step 2, what's my best way forward? Some of you guys maybe can find a nice technical algebraic way to do it. But for a lot of you, no real need, right? If you can kind of toggle back and forth between the algebra, get yourself over to that, that intuition, you're in pretty good shape. All right, let's do a little bit of exponents. This one's not too bad. It's a little bit more of a basic question, but I just want to test your hygiene real quick. Won't give you too much time for this. Come on back. Okay, so one of the big themes, how to avoid those careless errors that are so destructive on GMAT Quant. So for everybody, you know, if you're really struggling, you don't know a lot about exponents, you might look at this and go, oh, I forgot my exponent rules. I haven't done much of this. Probably a few of you in that boat, probably plenty of you who are like, no, this is so easy for me. I was doing this stuff when I was 8 years old. Well, good for you. Plenty of people in between. Pretty much across the board, though. Your hygiene can always be better. Your process can always be stronger. You can always do more to insulate yourself against those careless errors or those wastes of time, the inefficiency, right? So big theme on data sufficiency. I want you to push that question. What can you do to recycle the question? Rewrite an equivalent question that means the same thing. Helps you to see the relevance of these answer choices. So pretty much all the mistakes I think I'm seeing kind of in the second wave of live folks who are making mistakes on it, I can pretty much guarantee that you guys weren't pushing the question enough. Now, my goal here today, we don't have time to get through all the exponent rules. If you want that, we've got a kind of a more foundational video over on the GMAT Club YouTube channel. Branson does an awesome job with it. Not going to go through all the rules, but one of the big themes that the GMAT loves in exponents, it's kind of converting those bases. What I mean by that is, are these two bases, so the 8 and the 1/4, are they related in some way? That's the key. Once you see that, the whole question opens up to you pretty quickly. And it's actually pretty speedy. It's like, oh, wait, there's a 2 in there somewhere. There's a 2 in there somewhere. This is 2 to the 3rd. I could write it like this with parentheses. If that helps prevent you from making a mistake, that's great. So 2 raised to the 3rd, that whole thing's raised to the A. This, 2 to the -2. Again, I'm not going to rehash basic exponent rules here, but you need to be able to look at that fraction and go, okay, I can rewrite that as a negative exponent if I want to, and vice versa. Big theme. We'll get into that on the next question, probably. So here's my question. Again, still a question. I still want to be good about writing it that way, so don't make a mistake and decide it's a fact and start doing something funny with it. Let me write it one more time. So 2 to the 3a times 2 to the -2 is equal to what? And I have not left myself enough space. Multiplication, multiplying two exponents, same base. I can just add the exponents. So 2 to the 3a minus 2 is equal to what? Well, I know what the 2's doing. That's not the mystery. Sorry. Yes, thank you. Minus 2b. So 3a, 2 to the 3a, 2 to the minus 2b. There goes my voice already. Now we're number 2. 2 to the 3a minus 2b. The 2 is not the mystery. All I really need to know is 3a minus 2b. That's it. And now we're in business. Look at statement 1. And if the intuition still isn't there for you, let's say that your algebra skills aren't quite so strong, what can you do? Let me just try to make it look similar. Let's get the 3a there. I just multiply both sides by 2. 2b equals 3a. Great. I'm pretty much done. I subtract 2b from both sides. I'm in business. 0 equals 3a minus 2b. And a is sufficient. Can cross out BCE. Statement number 2. So here's the classic. People are calling it the C trap. I get a little nervous about that. The test isn't out to get you, right? I mean, they test these questions really thoroughly. A lot of research, a lot of time goes into them. But yeah, I think you should be a little careful just in the sense that if you look at it and you try to ingest both statements all at the same time, and it's very obviously C, just watch your back a little bit. Like, is it really C? Make sure you've taken the time to prove it. Really important. So this by itself isn't going to give you 3a minus 2b. It's just a by itself. So it is not that second statement. And A is our answer. All right. Ian, great to see you. I have a bunch of emails, man. Let's do one more question. I've seen a lot of struggles here. And again, my worry a little bit, and if you are one of the people watching this, whether you're watching it live or watching it later, and you're struggling, what I'm seeing in the live chat is people just slaughtering it. But I'm seeing about maybe 20, 25 people getting this really quickly and nothing from anybody else. So I have a feeling there's a lot of people who are kind of scuffling, because when we work with our students who are maybe kind of short of that, 48, 49, 50 level, I actually see a lot of issues with this. A lot of people really struggle with kind of the idea that you can express something as a fraction or as a negative exponent. And then also kind of struggle to break this up. I get a lot of people kind of saying out of the gate, oh, well, 5 must be, or X must be 1. And then they kind of get stuck trying to equate the 1/3 and the 45, and they kind of get shot there. All right. You can do this a couple different ways. I think the way I would prefer to start is write it all as negative exponents. 5 to the negative x, 3 to the negative 12 equals 5 to the negative 1, 45 to the negative 6. That should make your life a whole lot easier. This is the other thing a lot of people struggle with. If you're kind of a mid-level student, this might be an issue for you. So I can turn this into 5 times 3 squared. That's all raised to the negative 6. And now I'm in business. All I have to do is distribute this exponent. We got it basically. 5 to the negative x, 3 to the negative 12, 5 to the negative 1, and 5 to the negative 6. Somebody please yell at me if I make a mistake. And then we got it. X must be 5. I'm sorry, 7. The bases are 5. So this combines to 5 to the negative 7. X has got to be 5. There you go. And yeah, one quick thing. What I see a lot in these sessions, I see it a ton on the forums, is that obsession over difficulty level. Is this 700? Is this 500? Is this 620? Couple thoughts on that. Number one, difficulty on the GMAT determined empirically. So when you see those experimental questions, the GMAT's basically calculating how hard are these questions. Second, so this comes from my dark days when I was getting a PhD in psychometrics. You can't tell. Experts can't tell. My PhD advisor's favorite party trick was to get a room full of expert psychometricians, best in the world, and say, hey, which of these two questions is harder empirically? They'd all get it wrong, right? So it's really hard to tell, number one. As we do these unofficial questions, it's like, hey, I can make up a number and say, this is a 600 level question. Is that really helping you? I think the important thing is there's underlying skills here. Number one, don't make silly errors. And I'm going to keep harping on that. And people, it goes in one ear, right out the other. We see it every single day. I'm sure Ian can back me up on this. When we're tutoring people, we get students all the time where the issue isn't that they need to be better with math exactly, or that's a secondary issue. The big issue is they're being sloppy. So what can we do to improve your process so that you maximize your performance based on wherever your skills are? first thought. Second thought, I would think about this in terms of, yeah, what are the relevant skills? Do you have the flexibility to go back and forth between negative exponents and fractions? Number one. Number two, can you look at this and kind of see the 3s and 5s in it? It's a skill that's going to help you with number properties, help you with exponents. Essential question, if your goal is a 47 plus, you should be able to get this. If you ever make mistakes on this and your goal is something higher than that, that's an issue. All right. We are starting to run low on time once again. My voice is running out. GMAT, however, never runs out. On demand, 24/7. They did not write any of this ad copy. This is all ad-libbed, but I like what they've been doing. Been aware of these guys for a very, very long time. So once again, GMAT, thank you so much for sponsoring this block. Let's do, I don't know, should we do a super hard one or just kind of a not so intuitive one? Let's just do one quick not so intuitive one, and then we will move on. Oops. Come on back. The reason I like picking on this particular question is, it's not that it's super hard, it's not. But again, it's that toggling between logic and algebra. What I see a lot from our students on something like this is they'll look at the first part, right? They'll go, oh, yeah, I can take that. And I can kind of do the thing where I convert the bases, and I got 2 to the r times 2 to the 2s, because 2 squared is 4. And that's equal to 16. So I get 2 to the r plus 2s equals 2 to the 4th. So r plus 2s equals 4. And my answer is 4 because I got r plus 2s, and they're asking me for, wait a minute. Hey, it's 2r plus s. It's the opposite, right? I see that mistake all the time from people who are really, really, really good. And I know I'm really naggy about this today, but this is the errors we see all the time. So, hey, why is it that you've studied more math in your life than I have, and your score sometimes is a 43? This is the kind of thing you get into. And instead, it's like, look, easy to forget. R and S are positive integers here. There's only so many things it could be. So if we're saying that r plus 2s is 4, how many positive integers could possibly fit? S can't be 2, because then r would be 0, not positive. S has to be 1. R has to be 2. It's the only way. And you can come plug it in over here, and you got it. Welcome to the GMAT, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to, maybe it's a bad idea. I kind of want to force in one last question. That's a bad idea. We're already past the bottom of the hour. All right, just past the 2-hour mark, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, GMAT, thank you so much for doing this. Just to be clear, guys, I mean, we with our GMAT Club sponsors, we did say that I put in a plug, but nobody's scripting me. So GMAT hasn't said, hey, Charles, go read this. Just super, super appreciative of all the help, especially since we planned this whole thing on 8 or 9 days notice. So GMAT, thank you guys so much for stepping up and for being a whole lot of fun in general in the forum. It's been fun bantering with you guys over the years.